So let's get into the meat of this conversation. And Spencer, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how long you've been doing this and what your role is as a legislative assistant.
Thanks, Joan. Appreciate the chance to be here in front of this wide-ranging Zoom audience, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah, my name's Spencer, as you said. I've been doing this. This is my 5th year on the job. Started back 2017 as a session only. They let me go, brought me back in 2018, and I've been here ever since. So I'm 4th in seniority amongst the LAs, if that shows you how much turnover there is in our ranks, which is mind-boggling to me as well.
Yes.
But in my job as a legislative assistant, I work for 2 reps. If you've ever visited with Rep Fisher or Rep Wozlowick, you've probably talked to me before. I've been with them for the past 3 years, but normally I handle their day-to-day, their scheduling, work on Rep Fisher's committee, behavioral health policy, it's typically the first line of communication between the rep and the general public. So that's the very,
in a nutshell.
The very basic parts. But
okay.
we'll do anything from town halls to running things over to Senate to anything and everything you can think of.
Okay. So how do you typically interface with advocates? What's been your experience? And along with that, what do you feel has been the best forms of communication for advocates?
Well, pre-pandemic, we would do everything. We'd have visits in person. We'd have, take phone calls, be in the office every day, emails, of course. Town halls, like I said, would go out and do those more often, but post-pandemic, email, occasional phone call, email.
Okay, good. Well, that's really helpful to hear, because I think at the beginning of the pandemic, some folks thought phone calls, because typically that was one way they could reach a legislative assistant or a lawmaker. But the assistant, especially in the office. But it's
right
good
now,
to hear. It's a different world now.
Yeah, right now I'm at home. I'm in the office 2 days a week, maybe.
Okay.
And it's mainly to do the physical part where we have to print letters. We have to see some people in person.
Right.
The building's closed to the public right now. So if you do want to schedule something, it's such a crapshoot on if you'll get us, if you'd make a phone call. So okay. I know a lot of people have their phones tied to their computers, but you need fancy headsets or, and a lot of the staff are fresh out of college and may not have that, or it's just such a wide variation of skill level of who's doing the job, and not that they're not skilled, but it's just of backgrounds and home situations. And I know one of my coworkers has 3 roommates, 2 dogs, and a cat, and in a 3-bedroom apartment. So
okay,
it's whereas I bought a house right before the pandemic, and it's just me and the cat up here. So
okay. So it sounds like for advocates who are planning to schedule a visit, definitely to email you or their legislative assistant for the representative and senator is the best way. And can you just share how your email is formatted? And I mention that because we encourage advocates to go to what I call the profile page of the lawmaker. And then it does have the name of the legislative assistant and the phone number, but it doesn't automatically give the email. So for both legislative assistants for the House and for the Senate, can you just describe the format? Like what advocates should do then for getting the email?
Yeah, it's real simply, it's just our first name dot last name at house.mn. So, and the reps have rep dot first dot last at house.mn. So
Okay,
they just have rep at the beginning instead of.
okay. So
So,
that is very straightforward. They can see
yep.
your name and then just create the email from your name.
Yep. And
How-
if you're not sure, there is a staff page on the website where you can click on any of our names and it'll show our email.
Okay,
So
okay.
if you get a bounce back, you can double check through the staff page.
Okay, that sounds great. And then in terms of online platforms for the meetings, what does your office use for an online meeting? And what are you open to using?
We typically will use Zoom or Teams. Teams is our built-in system, but we know that not everyone has that, and Zoom is a little bit more mainstream. So, but if the best thing for us to hear is, oh, and we can provide the link.
Okay,
And that makes our job infinitely easier if you tell us up front that give us a time, we'll send you the link.
okay. That is really good to know that that's your preference, is for an advocate to provide a Zoom link. But it sounds like if necessary, that your office could provide a Teams link. Could they also provide a Zoom link or just
Yep.
the Teams link?
Yep,
Okay.
we can provide a Zoom link. Although if you're scheduling, like I have a free account,
Mhm.
and so I'm limited to one meeting per time period,
Right.
and I have 2 reps I work for. So,
Oh, okay. Now I understand the picture. So you're trying to schedule multiple or meetings for 2 people, and you may have some conflicts if you've got to use your own Zoom account.
and so the more meetings that are offered by the advocates or created by the advocates, the happier we are.
Okay, okay. And the session starts January 31st. And as I mentioned, we're asking advocates to contact their legislative assistant for meetings between March 16th and 18th. But we realize it may be outside of that particular timeframe. How early do you recommend that advocates contact you via email or legislative assistance to get a meeting on the schedule for the lawmaker?
I think 3 to 4 weeks is probably ideal because we have an idea. We're just starting to fill out the calendar that far ahead, and surprises are going to happen. It's the legislature. If you've ever scheduled a meeting with us before, there's a 40% chance that you're going to get rescheduled just because of all the things that are going on. I would keep an eye on when deadlines are, because if they put deadlines early this year and that week turns into a deadline week, you're going to get canceled.
Thank you very much for mentioning that. So the committee deadlines, now that I think about it, they typically are in March. Is that correct?
Yeah, and with Easter being so late this year, it could throw a wrench into things. We haven't been given the deadlines yet, but
okay.
They usually come out within a few weeks of session starting.
Okay. So these are the committee. Can you just, as long as we're talking, could you just explain a little bit about, there's 2 deadlines. Could you just say a word about those 2 deadlines?
There's 3 deadlines.
Oh, 3. Sorry. Okay.
The first one, I'm gonna butcher this.
And that's okay if you want to pass on it too.
Basically, they're the deadlines for when bills have to get through certain committees. First deadline has to get through policy committees. And like I said, I'm going to butcher this because it's been a while, but it's basically the process. Whenever first deadline hits, basically there's a mad rush of bill hearings that week, and the members are having committees at all hours of the day. They'll go late into the evening to get these bills heard and to get them onto the next committee. And
Yeah.
it's just a hectic week. So,
And we'll, once JRLC knows that information too, we'll share that with our members and advocates as well, because we'll be trying to get legislation authored and into those committees as well. Can you tell me a little bit about a typical time frame that a lawmaker has to meet with people, especially that this is during the session? We ask the advocates and members to be flexible, knowing that there might be a 20-minute slot, but that might change to 10 minutes. So can you just say a word about expectations for how much time typically a lawmaker will have for these types of online visits?
yeah, especially for constituents, I know that, we try to bend over backwards for people in the district. It's typically the meetings are 15 minutes. I know a lot of reps these days are scheduling for 15 and blocking off 30.
Okay.
Because if it runs long, then they have time to take a screen break or time to get to the next Zoom call, or if technology breaks, or just built-in time where, if things go bad, people are late, etc. So,
Okay.
and so, that's my two reps typically, like I said, 15 minutes with a 30-minute block.
Okay.
I'll tell you 50. I'm giving away my secrets. I'll say you 15 and I'll block off 30. So,
okay. Well, thank you for that inside tip. But again, we're trying to set expectations for advocates.
yeah,
So that's helpful to know about 15 minutes is
15 minutes is the standard. I know a lot of members are going back to 15 minutes without the extra 15 in there, but and so the more concise you are, the better it is for everyone.
Okay. And when the meeting facilitator district leader is setting up the meeting with you, of course, you need a Zoom link. What other information is helpful for you and the lawmaker to have prior to the meeting or after the meeting?
Yeah, typically the best requests will say who they are, that they're a constituent, and their address, so I can verify it. So please give that to me up front, so I don't have to send an email back asking.
Okay.
Because that's, for most members, the most important thing. Are there constituents in this meeting?
Yes.
And so, knowing that up front, I will immediately say yes, as opposed to questioning who you are.
Okay.
And so that, and good contact info in case I need to get back to you, and I'll do my best to schedule you in there, and and as long as they can be a little flexible, some members have, if you're asking for a Wednesday and they have 4 committees that day, I'm probably not going to have time, because but just as long as you understand that they have other obligations they have to go to as well, and we're trying our best.
Okay.
We'll get you in.
And I have a question. If advocates, these constituents, if the only time they could meet is like early evening, is that typically something the lawmaker would be open to if they don't have committee meetings? Or is their preference, usually to try to do those during the day?
For constituents, I think they would be, especially in this Zoom environment, definitely, because they can go home and they can take the meeting from home.
Okay.
If they're in the office that day. So it depends on the member, but I think that many would be open to it. It also, depends on their family situation. If they have kids and arrange them off to basketball, or
right.
All member pending, but I think a lot of them will be open to that.
Okay, that's Again, very helpful to know. And then I know this would be your perspective, but when you see emails or have phone calls or letters coming from advocates on a particular issue, what has typically been the greatest impact, where they're trying to urge support of a particular legislative issue? Would you weigh any one of those emails, phone calls, or personal letters, weigh any of those more heavily in terms of their impact?
I think a good personal email is probably is very effective these days. Phone calls, voicemails, I'm the one listening to those. So,
Okay.
So whatever passion you have for an issue, well, you're talking to me.
Okay.
So, and form emails, if we get a whole bunch of them, we typically, a form email gets a form response, whereas a personal email gets a more personal response.
Okay. That's good to know. And that's what we typically do tell advocates during this this pandemic time as well, that the personal email is most effective. And then can you share some other ways that advocates can get to know their lawmakers, their priorities, out of session too, or an email or listserv, things like that? What do you recommend, like very concrete ways to build a relationship for the long haul with their representative and senator?
I mean, this is good information considering we're all about to be redistricted in next year. So
Yes.
definitely signing up for newsletters is a great way to keep up to date. Attending town halls, just regular correspondence, just checking emails, asking questions about what's going on. We're happy to answer questions about the process, why certain people voted for things, why they didn't vote for things.
Mm-hmm.
It's all on the record. So, we're gonna, at least the reps I work for, they're gonna take the time and get back to folks and be as transparent as possible. So it's we like to hear from people.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear. And if a advocate wanted to find out how a representative or senator voted, is it best to go through your office or public information office, or what's the most effective way to find out how someone voted on a particular piece of legislation? Or there are a couple ways.
There's a few ways. You can go for specific bills. You can either go through the bill page and they have all the votes listed. I know with omnibus bills, it's sometimes tough to find out on because they get rolled into the bigger bill. But all the committee votes are all on the committee pages. Otherwise, just send us an email.
Okay.
They know how they voted on a bill. They're the ones in the committee room. They know exactly what was going on.
That sounds good. The advocates would be hearing it firsthand then of how a lawmaker voted. And anything else that you would like to share with advocates to help them think about building relationships with lawmakers and communicating with lawmakers? Just anything in general?
We're just happy to hear from you. It's that's and be patient with us. It's we're all working from home. It's been a rough 2 years, and we're trying our best. But it's I know when the building's closed and you can't come face to face with us, and it's tough on all of us. I would much rather be giving this speech in person to folks around my desk as they come visit me. But and it just we're trying.
Yes. Well, Spencer, really thank you so much for sharing that, because this is, has been a different world for advocates as well. And it's good to know that they understand your environment you're working into, and that lawmakers and staff usually prefer that face-to-face conversation that they can have with constituents. And we hope to get there, soon, where we return to in-person meetings. And certainly there may be some situations, in the metro area, I realize, where lawmakers, if they live here and we have constituents that want to meet at a physical distance with their lawmaker, at a library or community center, that
Touching on
may be
that,
a possibility.
touching on that note, actually, we did just get an email yesterday that said that the Capitol is open. So
Okay.
some members might be willing to meet over at the Capitol building.
Okay.
If you ask very nicely.
Okay.
But
And that probably would be a case by case
Yep.
situation too, correct?
Yep. So,
Okay.
but that is, if you go meet outside the rotunda or something like that, that is that you can ask. We might not say yes, but you can definitely ask. So
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Well, any final comments? I think I'll wrap it up here if there aren't, but again, I really appreciate your time. It's very helpful for folks to know the nuts and bolts of communicating with their lawmaker, and knowing that your office, your virtual office, is open, and you just ask folks to be patient and flexible in getting those meetings set. So again, thank you. And we'll have this video ready for a training on February 8th, and I'll share that with you too.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Joan.
Okay.